All right, let's get right into it. There's this thing called binaural beats, and a lot of people swear by it for studying. The question is, could these specific sound waves actually be a secret hack for your brain to focus and learn better? We're going to dig into the science behind this massive trend. So, we're starting our investigation into the whole world of study music. It's a world full of some pretty big promises, right? But are those promises actually backed by any real proof? Is it myth? Or is there some magic to it?
I mean, think about it. Have you ever put on some music to study? My guess is, yeah, probably. Whether it's classical or some lo-fi hip-hop stream or maybe just rain sounds. We're all kind of looking for that little something extra to help us lock in and concentrate. And this isn't some small niche thing. Just go on YouTube and you'll see these focus music videos with tens of millions of views. It's wild. Clearly, the demand for something to boost our focus is absolutely massive.
So, that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? We need to get past what people say works and see what happens when you put it to the test. And that's exactly what we're going to do by looking at a real-world scientific experiment that tested binaural music in an actual classroom. So, let's pull back the curtain on this experiment. And what's cool is that this wasn't done in some perfect, sterile lab. This was what scientists call a natural experiment, which means it happened in a real live educational setting, with all the messiness that comes with it.
The scene is a university business school, right at the peak of online learning back in 2021. The researcher basically saw students struggling to pay attention while learning from home and thought, I wonder if some background music could actually help with this.
Okay, but before we go any further, what in the world are binaural beats? Well, it's a pretty cool auditory illusion. Here's the deal. You put on headphones and you hear one frequency in your left ear, say 440 hertz, and a slightly different one in your right, like 450 hertz. Your brain, it gets a little confused, and it actually creates a third tone, a phantom beat, pulsing at the difference, which would be 10 hertz. The whole theory is that this rhythm can gently guide your brain waves into a desired state, like the alpha wave state for calm focus.
Now check this out, because the way they set this up was really clever. For 2 of the classes, they did this crossover test. Group A got music for the first half of the course, and Group B didn't. Then, halfway through, they swapped. This is brilliant because it means every single student served as both part of the experiment and the control group. It's a really powerful way to compare the effects.
So, just to recap the whole setup, you've got 73 undergrads split into 3 classes. Learning was measured with quizzes after every single lecture. And what was the soundtrack for this experiment? A very specific binaural track designed to encourage those alpha waves, the brain state associated with relaxed alertness.
Okay, so the stage is set, the experiment runs, the data's in the bag. What did they find? Well, this is where the story gets really interesting. And boom, here's the first result, and it is a big one. For the students in the international economics class, listening to the music was linked to an average quiz score increase of almost 20 points. That is huge. That's like going from a 58 to a 77. A massive difference.
I mean, a 20-point jump? That sounds pretty final, doesn't it? It seems like we should all just stop what we're doing and go plug in our headphones right now.
But, science is rarely that simple. Because when the researcher looked at the data from those other 2 groups, the ones with that really clever crossover design, the picture got a whole lot more complicated. Just take a look at this. It's wild. For Group A, their quiz scores were actually 5 points lower when the music was playing, but then for Group B, their scores were 8 points higher with the music on. We're talking about the exact same music in very similar classes producing completely opposite results. So what on earth is going on here?
Okay, so let's put on our detective hats for a second. To figure out these mixed-up signals, the researcher had to dig into the little details, the subtle differences between these classes.
So clue number 1 was in the quizzes themselves. Turns out the microeconomics quizzes had true or false questions. And with true or false, you've got a 50-50 shot of just guessing right. This could have added a bunch of random noise to the data, making it way harder to see a clear effect from the music.
But honestly, the biggest clue, the real smoking gun, came straight from the students. When they were asked for feedback, a bunch of them in those microeconomics classes said things like this, complaining that the audio was just bad. And remember, this was all happening over glitchy online class software in 2021.
So really, the real world just got in the way. You had bad internet,
distorted microphones, and the professor trying to control the volume for everyone. For some students, instead of a relaxing background track, it was just an annoying, distracting noise. And on top of all that, some people just didn't like the music. They found it distracting instead of relaxing.
Okay, so with all this messy, conflicting evidence, what's the actual takeaway here? How can you use any of this in your own study sessions?
Here's the bottom line. Binaural beats aren't a magic pill. It's a tool. And like any tool, whether it works or not depends entirely on how you use it and in what situation. That 20-point jump shows us there's some real potential there. But the confusing results show that if the audio is bad or you just personally hate it, it can completely backfire.
So if you want to try this for yourself, think of it as your own little personal experiment. First, and this is non-negotiable, you have to use headphones. It's the only way the effect works. Second, look for a track labeled alpha waves, just like in the study. Third, keep the volume low. It's supposed to be in the background, not the main event. And, honestly, the most important step. Just pay attention to how you feel. If it feels annoying or distracting, it is. The whole goal is to figure out what actually works for you.
If this experiment shows us anything, it's that context and personal taste are everything. Which kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. Forgetting all the hype and the science for a second, what's the one sound, whether it's a certain kind of music, total silence, or the buzz of a coffee shop, that truly helps you get in the zone?